Welcome back. This is Jennifer, and I'm very glad you're here. Today I'm sharing with you an oldie but goodie favorite technique of mine. This is a technique that allows you to get a really bold, dark background around a lighter image. This is great for one-layer cards and for cards where you just want to make a lot of impact. Now, I'm going to show you how to do this technique today using stamps and layering stencils and background stamps, but I will mention other ways to do this technique. Now, the products that I'm using today are new from Gina K Designs, but you could use a variety of products you likely have on hand. First of all, I'll be using the new Gina K Designs Hello Lovely kit. Gina's kits are great because they are packed full of products and have different style products included, so you can create a great variety of cards. Now in this one, you have 2 stamp sets and the coordinating dies. I'll be using that top middle stamp set with the big floral image and the sentiments. There is also a smaller stamp set in coordinating stencil and coordinating die. You'll see me use that later in this video. Oh, and I forgot to mention that large floral stamp set that we'll be using has 6 layering stencils included in the kit. So I'll be using that floral stamp set, the layering stencils, and the coordinating die. They're all included. I'll be using these products to create a stamped but light colored image. Then we're going to surround it with dark color and a background stamped image. I will also be doing a partial die cutting technique to get this shaped edge to the front of our card. It's easy to do and very effective. So I have my MISTI stamping tool, and in it I'm placing a white note card that is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. The open end of the card is facing down towards the bottom of the screen. Now I am taking that large floral image and I'm lining it up along the bottom of this card, making sure the image stretches from the left edge to the right edge of the card. And I'm also making sure the bottom tip of the leaf images lines up with the bottom edge of my card. I will stamp this ink with Gina K Black Obsidian Amalgam ink. The reason I'm using this ink is that it is friendly with all the different ways you might want to color, so it takes the guesswork out. I will do ink blending on top of it, and I know that this ink will stay nice and vibrant and not smear. So I'm stamping on the bottom of one note card, and because I have my supplies out, I'm going to make a second note card. So I'll pop that in and stamp the same image on it. Now, before I do any ink blending over this black ink, I do want to be sure that it's completely dry. And so all I'll do is I'll spend about 30 seconds heating it with my heat gun to be sure it's completely dry so we don't have any smearing. Now, since I'll be doing a lot of ink blending over this card, I want to put something on the back of my card to protect it, to keep it from getting inky. I'm using Gina K Masking Magic, which is a great masking paper, and it's something that you can reuse many times. What I like to do is cut a piece that's slightly bigger than my note card and put it on the back of the note card. And I do that right at the beginning, before I do ink blending, and I don't take it off till after my card is complete. That will make sure the back of my card doesn't get inky and messy. And I can reuse that piece of masking paper over and over. Now I'm going to cut a few fresh pieces here so you can see how I do this. I'm actually holding 3 pieces of Masking Magic together, and I'm cutting them down to be a little bit bigger than 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'll save those little strips for another project, or I could use them as temporary tape. All right, so I have this piece of Masking Magic. I'll put it on the back of my note card, and that way I can be sure it stays clean. And again, you can use it many, many times. All right, so now it's time to use those layering stencils to add color into this floral image. Now you definitely could do any kind of coloring that you would want to here, but I'm a big fan of layering stencils that color in stamped images because it always gives great results, saves me a lot of time, and takes very little effort. So I'm starting with the first stencil, which will give me like a base color for my flowers. So the entire opening covers the entire flowers. I'm using that leftover Masking Magic strip to hold the stencil in place. If you wanted to, you could do a little pencil line there on the right-hand edge so that you know where to line up your stencil each time. But I found this is really easy to line up each time. You don't need to do that, so I will just eyeball it. Now over this opening, I'm doing a very light amount of light orchid ink. And then I will do a light amount of light lilac ink over the center of the flowers, just to get kind of a two-tone look. I am opting to color these very light colored, especially on the outside tips of these flowers, because it'll give us more contrast later when we add a darker color around it. However, you could absolutely color these however you want. You could do like a bold red and then maybe do like a dark navy around it. Anything would really work. All right, now it's time for the second stencil. This provides some of the darker details to our flowers, and it's very easy to line up with the outline stamped image. Over this, I'll apply medium orchid, and then I'll apply a bit of the medium lilac just towards the center. So that really matches up with the lighter colors we put behind it. I really like to mix two different inks over an opening because it really adds quite a bit of interest with very little effort. All right, now it's time for the third stencil. This will do some of the leaves around the edge. On this, I'm doing a very light amount of jelly bean green ink. This is like the perfect green color, kind of a limeish green. Going very light-handed here. Then I'll come in with the next stencil, and this just gives me the details where I'll apply the exact same green, that same jelly bean green, but this time heavy-handed. So it'll look like I used two different ink pads, but I really used the same one, first with the light hand and then next with the heavier hand. All right, now it's time for the fifth stencil, I believe it is. I'm using medium spruce over the openings. I'm going very light-handed here. I don't want this to be too dark. I did want these to be a little bit more bluish green. So when I come on with the sixth and final stencil, I'm actually using turquoise sea on top of that spruce. By doing a bit of that turquoise color, it really makes that blue pull out a bit more and adds more interest. So we have green leaves and like a bluish leaf. Okay, so now we have our images colored in. I really like how quick and easy that is to do with the layering stencils. All right, now it's time for the next step of this technique. For this, I'm going to clean off all of my stencils, and I'm going to heat set all of that inking we did. It'll dry on its own, but I just really want to make sure I get nice, crisp embossing, which we're about to do, so heat setting is always a good idea. Okay, I'm going back to the first stencil. Remember, the first stencil has the entire two floral images open, so it covers the entire two floral images. I'll use my anti-static powder tool and line that stencil up. And over the inking we've already done, that lilac and orchid inking, I am applying Versamark ink, which is a clear embossing ink. Any clear embossing ink would work here. I like to use my Tim Holtz foam ink blending tool to apply that ink, and I'm just pressing it over the opening very generously. So basically, I'm covering all of my flowers with a layer of clear sticky ink. I will then add clear embossing powder and heat set it. This will give us clear embossing over our flowers, so to have this beautiful shine to it. But the reason I'm doing this is for a technique purpose, which I'm going to show you in a moment, and I can show you how to remove that shine later if you want to. I will skip stencil 2, which is just the details on the flower. We don't need that one this time. I'll go into stencil 3, which gives me the open leaves. So this will allow me to put Versamark ink over all of those jelly bean green leaves that we did. So you'll see all of those leaves are open. I'll press Versamark ink over it and really try to get as much ink down as possible. That's why I'm using a foam blending tool instead of a brush. With Versamark ink, I think it's easier to use the foam inking tool. Okay, so once I have Versamark ink all over those green leaves, I will add my clear heat embossing powder and heat set that. So now we'll have all of our flowers covered and all of our like limeish green colored leaves covered. All we have left are those bluish green leaves that stick out there on the left and the right of the card. So we'll use stencil number 5 for this, put the Versamark ink over it, and that will cover all of these bluish green leaves. Then we'll add the embossing powder and heat set it. So now all of my color is covered with clear embossing powder. So we have the inked color that we did with the stenciling trapped underneath the clear embossing powder. Now you saw that this worked really well with this particular stamp set and layering stencil because I was able to use this stencil to add the clear embossing over the inking. If you don't have a stencil to do that, another thing you could do is stamp and color your image with whatever coloring you want. Then you could use a Versamark pen. A Versamark pen is the same as an ink pad, but in a pen form. So you would just use that clear pen to color over all of your coloring, add your clear embossing powder and heat set. So you could get to the same step we are here using a Versamark pen. I'll try to show that in a future video. But let's go back to this one. We have clear heat embossing over all of our colored floral image. Now let's add the bold dark color around it. Now I started out by using the Gina K medium lilac ink. And I'm going light-handed at first, but then I start adding heavier and heavier. I wasn't sure how much color I wanted to put down at this point, so it's best to start light and build it up. So you could stay light like we have here, and you can see that our floral image stays true to color because we've trapped the coloring we did with the stencils underneath the clear embossing. The clear embossing is resisting all of this ink we're putting on top so that the color of the flower stays true. So notice I've moved on to a dark lilac here, and I can apply that very heavy around our floral image right on top of it. And the clear embossing will resist it and allow us to wipe off that excess ink. I decided to go even darker and switch to a navy color from Gina K, and I'll apply that on top. So you can see how I can get a really bold, dark background around our light stamped and colored images. I love this result. I think it's so fast and easy to do. After I'm done, I will make sure I buff off all the excess ink off of that clear embossing, and we have beautiful results. You could stop here if you wanted, but I wanted to add a background stamp to that dark background, but not on top of our flowers. So let's do that technique next. Now I was trying to figure out which background stamp to use, and I thought I'd show you a bunch of new background stamps Gina K Designs has just come out with. The fun thing about these background stamps is they're clear. Now she has many of these designs in cling versions where they're rubber cling stamps, and they work wonderfully too. But it really is nice to have them in a clear format because you can easily line them up on your background wherever you want them. It's very helpful, makes it a lot easier. One of my favorites is this Gauze background stamp. This is great for kiss stamping techniques or for stamping over a stencil opening. I'll be sure to use that one in the future. One of the things I like about Gina K's background stamps is they're very universal. A lot of these would work well with a variety of card themes or styles. This one is the Elegant Script. I've used the cling version of this many times in videos. It's just a really great way to add a fun look of texture to a background. But today I decided to go with the Music Melody background stamp. I just feel like this works with a variety of occasions and is small enough print that it can be used for a lot of techniques like we're doing today. And because it's clear, I'll easily be able to line it up over my card, making sure that it's centered and straight. So I'm putting my card onto the grip mat in my MISTI stamping tool. I can line up the music stamp on top, close the door on the stamping tool to grab the stamp, and I'm inking up my stamp with Gina K white pigment ink. I'm only going to stamp this once, so I have a light white impression. I can use my dry cloth to wipe that excess ink off of the embossing areas. The clear embossing there is resisting this white ink also. So we'll end up with white stamping around our image, but not on top of it. Now at this point, I'm done with my inking, so I can remove that masking paper from the back and save it for another card. Now you could leave this background as is with the shiny heat embossing on the floral images. But if you want to remove that shine, it's really easy to do, and I thought I'd show that today. To do this, you need an iron. Yes, I have an iron in my house, not for clothing, only for crafting. I have some scrap cardstock and a towel on my desk here, and I have my iron turned all the way up on hot without steam. I'll place my card on top of it and then 2 pieces of copy or printer paper. And I'm just going to put that right on top of the front of our card. I will then press the iron on top, which will melt that embossing powder, and the embossing powder will transfer from my card to the scrap paper. You can actually see the embossing powder on the scrap paper. You could use this for another technique. I'm not going to use it today. Instead, I just did this ironing technique to remove that embossing powder from my card so the shine will now be gone. And so my card will be perfectly smooth matte finish with those light colored images and the bold background and stamping around it. I love this result, and it's so hard to achieve that in other ways. This is fantastic for a one-layer card technique. However, I'm going to change mine up a bit and do that partial die cut edge along the bottom. To do so, I have my Gina K Designs Intricate Die Cut machine. You can do partial die cutting with whatever machine you may have. I'm taking that large coordinating die for the floral, and I'm taping it in place using some temporary tape. Now, when I go to put the top plate on top of this, I'm only going to cover up part of my die, the part that's closest to that bottom edge. Everything that's closer towards the top edge, I'm going to leave hanging out from the plate. The only thing that's going to cut is the part of the die underneath the plate. So everything hanging out will not cut. So now I can pick up the plates as I have them here, run them through my die cut machine, and this will give me a partial die cut edge. So you can see how the floral image is only cut along the bottom because that was the only part of the die underneath the top cutting plate. Now I missed a little bit of the leaves over here on the side, so I'm just going to trim them with my scissors. It's easy to do. So now we have a fun little floral border on the front of our card, and the white from the inside shows through along the bottom. I decided to add a little interest to the inside, so I'm using the Gina K Designs Swiss Dot embossing folder, and I'm putting a piece of white cardstock in there that is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. The nice thing about the intricate die cut machine from Gina K is there's a dial on the side. You just turn the dial from die cutting to embossing folder, and you can use the same sandwich and do both techniques. After using the embossing folder, I put glue on the back of it, and I'll glue that to the inside of the card. So now we have those little Swiss dots peeking out when the card is closed. I used the Gina K Designs Master Layouts 8 die set that has a circle die with faux stitching on the inside edge. I cut that circle from white cardstock, and I'm gluing that to the inside so that I have a nice place to write my personal message, but you won't see the circle when the card is closed. I finished off the card by stamping the "You Are Loved" sentiment from the Hello Lovely card kit with black ink, and used the coordinating die to cut it out, and glued it right on the focal point of our card, there between the flowers. I also added a few gemstones for a bit of sparkle. Here's a closer look at that lightly colored in stamped image with the bold color and stamping around it. This gives such a unique, cool look, and really is a pretty quick way to do it by using the clear embossing powder on top. Remember, I did iron mine off so I'd have that smooth matte look. Oh, and the card stands up nicely on its own thanks to the bottom edge of those leaves lining up with the bottom edge of the card. Now I have another card that I did in the same way. I did the exact same thing, but just with different colors. On this one, instead of the orchids and lilacs, I used the carnation colors from Gina K Designs to color in those flowers. Once I colored in all of the floral image, I did the clear embossing on top, just like I did on the last card. Then I applied the carnation color over the background, and I didn't like it. I thought that was way too much of the carnation color, so I actually quit on this card. But then I decided to come back to it and keep trying, and try for a darker background. So I put some masking magic on the back of the card and on the inside, since I've already done the partial die cutting. And I decided to go with eggplant, and I applied that dark purple on top of the carnation. And I went pretty dark there around the floral image and lighter towards the edge. And then I started to like it more. Now on top of this, I will do the same thing where I stamp that music stamp with the white pigment ink, wipe away a little bit of that extra ink off of the clear heat embossing, and then again do the iron off technique. You can skip the ironing off if you want to keep that clear embossing on top, that shine, but if you want it to look very smooth and matte finished, you can easily iron it off. The ironing really doesn't take that long to do, and it really gives a wow factor afterwards because it's kind of like, how did they do that? How did they do that light coloring with the dark background and stamping around it? For the sentiment on this, I used Miss You Friend from this small stamp set that's included in that same Hello Lovely card kit. Keep in mind there is a stencil included that you can use to color this little floral image in, but I'm just using the Friend, the Miss You, and the coordinating dies. I stamped those sentiments with black ink on white cardstock, cut them out, and glued them at the focal point of our card, kind of hanging off that bottom edge. I did the rest of the card the same as the other, except on the inside, instead of the Swiss dots, I used the Gina K Lattice embossing folder, another one that I reach for often. So here you could see how I have these light carnation colored flowers and bright green leaves with the dark purple ink around it. I'm glad I went back to this card and didn't give up on it because I think that dark purple really makes this stand out even better. So if you're looking for a way to do light colored images with dark color around it and even stamping around it, try this technique. Clear embossing powder is great for resist, and you can always remove it with a little bit of ironing off. And before we go, I did want to mention that Gina K Designs always has a free stamp set with orders of $75 or more. This is the free stamp set right now. You can also purchase the coordinating dies to go with it. I really like this set, so I wanted to be sure to let you know about it. All right, I hope you give this technique a try. It's really fun to do and a great way to get bold looks from products you have. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. If you're looking for the supplies I used, they are linked in my YouTube description. Be sure to click the visual supply list link at the top. That's a really easy way to find anything you're looking for. At the end here, I'll link to a couple other related videos, including masking with clear embossing and the ironing off technique. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.